we actually already today talked about what was happening in July 26 because it is the perfection of the exact degree moments of the first of five exact trines, the triangles between futuristic radical Uranus and evolutionary transformational underworld Pluto, that the first of those five trines will be in July of 2026. But right now that Uranus has just tipped into Gemini, we're getting within a degree and a half, we're getting that buzz already. And then you add to the fact that in July, Uranus and Pluto will both be at exactly 4 degrees of their signs, which means that the trine will be exact by degree, and Neptune will be at 4 degrees of its sign in Aries, exactly at the same degree. And then you add the fact that Jupiter will be at 4 degrees also of Leo, and we have these four outer planets that are locked in this hum that right now, I say right now, mid-July of 2025, we're getting glimpses of it because that's what's feeding us. And it feels like we're in this moment and we're barreling into the future at a crazy speed that's totally out of control. But if you think about retrocausality, it's this major event that's happening in a year that some way is sending tentacles back into this moment that's saying, what you're really doing now is you're thinking about what's going to be like a year down the road. And what do you need to do now? I mean, the other half of Jack Sarfati's, what he called the God phone, was when you get that call from yourself 30 or 50 years in the future, you're supposed to ask that person, you in the future, what do I need to do today to manifest you as you are calling me now? And so I think unconsciously, this is part of what we're doing. A lot of people are panicking, saying, I thought I was on course to something, but it's not going the way I think I want it to go if I want to be somewhere in a year. And so people are panicking and wanting to make changes, but it feels so overwhelming because things are moving so fast. It's almost like, well, it almost doesn't matter what I do. It's like most people are just completely overwhelmed.
How do they navigate the overwhelm? I mean, before you said, "Hey, don't strap in. Keep just like let yourself into the waters. Try and keep your head above water." As kind of being this surrender, but also look after yourself. Is there key elements in there in terms of looking after yourself during these particular times as we're going through? There's probably a better word than ascension symptoms, but as we're going through this.
Well, actually, I've resisted the ascension word because of its religious overtones. Not that I'm against any religion that is teaching or moving toward ascension, but the fact of the matter is, when you look at the vibratory rate of our beings, and you go back 150 years ago, the fastest thing that was vibrating around us was the day and night rhythm, or maybe the seasons. And now, when radio came on board in the early 20th century, all of a sudden we all had devices that were vibrating at kilohertz, thousands of cycles a second. Even the Tesla's alternating current, 50 or 60 cycles a second. Now everyone has in their pocket a device that's vibrating at gigahertz. That's billions of cycles a second. Our vibratory rates are ascending. We are vibrating ourselves out of physical realms into more metaphysical realms. That's what's going on behind all this that everyone is living. They just don't put it into those words, but that's what's happening. So we are ascending, whether you're using a framework of spiritual ascension or ET ascension or Pleiadian ascension or just emotional ascension. We are basically vibrating faster and faster and faster and faster and faster.
It's interesting because some people tuning in at this juncture might be a little bit concerned. And let me just give you because I'm tuning into a lot of people, and they're like, touch wood, people are feeling tired, people are feeling overwhelmed, people are feeling burnt out, people are feeling fatigued, lots of people are grieving and experiencing a lot of loss. Lots of people are losing a lot of loved ones. There's a lot of loss, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of disorientation, there's a lot of tiredness, there's a lot of overwhelm.
And
There's a
in the
lot.
United States, there's a lot of fear based upon the uncertainty, based upon, new immigration policies or, or people being arrested and taken off the streets, not because they've done anything wrong, but just because they're swept into these, networks. No, what you're
And
saying
so,
is exactly true.
but then also,
And
if just one second, because
yeah,
there's also if this is the rehearsal for what's coming up, like people,
yeah, and maybe rehearsal isn't quite exactly the right word, but what we're doing now is it is in a way a dry run. In other words, the real show has not started. Now, this is why people are reacting and overreacting, and yet it feels like it almost doesn't matter what I do because the big pictures out there are so entrenched in a system. In other words, another manifestation of Pluto is the hidden system. Whether it's a plutocracy is not an oligarchy, which is the running of the government by wealthy people. A plutocracy is the running of government by people with so much wealth that you don't even know they exist. It's the secret behind the obvious. And yet Pluto is also the planet of evolution and transformation. And so I think that people are rightfully concerned. But but again, we have to keep reminding ourselves that what's going on in the three-dimensional world that we're perceiving is not really what's going on under the ocean. And what's going on under the surface of the ocean ultimately will be more important, but what that is really up to what we're doing right now, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, and we have to have some sort of faith in the process that which is happening beneath the surface ultimately will be the surface. And if we go to sleep, there's that Rumi poem, the world is coming awake, it's morning, do not go back to sleep. And in a way, it's like important that as we awaken individually, it's important that we don't go back to sleep. And anyone who listens to my work online knows that I close almost every podcast with think cosmically, act locally. And this is basically what we need to do because we can all act locally. And what does that mean? It means to not lose it, because you had a bad day at work and your kid comes in and does something, and not to just take it out on them, to actually process information locally, which is often not as easy as it sounds, but we have to each do our individual work. The last book that Jung wrote before he died was a little, maybe 120-page little booklet called The Undiscovered Self. And in it, he said that treaties and world peace, no, he said world peace will never be obtained by politicians running around the world in ever faster circles creating treaties. That world peace will only be obtained when the individuals within the world have peace of mind. Now, this is Mahayana Buddhism. The concept is no one gets off until we all get off. And
yeah.
here is our work. Our work is to push away from the edge of the river and to look around and see who's there and to interact with our community, to make belongingness, even though many of the governments around the world are doing everything they can to disenfranchise us from our communities and to instill fear because what's that, united we stand, divided we fall, and that we have to find our own ways of uniting locally, with family, with friends, to heal the wounds that we have, to heal the relationships that we have, which again is not always easy stuff. I mean, I can talk a good act, but unless I live my game in my own life, which I don't always do easily, but that's where the work is.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well, then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.